Questions? Comments? Concerns? Complaints? Yes.
You said like when you're up like at the mountaintop or whatever, like the world slows down there, but isn't it more of like the way you analyze things slows down because you're more calm and like you're more like you're not anxious, you know, you're not like going with time, like you know you're like you're kind of just like you're analyzing things slower. You know?
Absolutely, it gives you an opportunity to do that, and you're right. That's what I meant by it. It gives you an opportunity to the world's still moving at its speed, but you're moving at a different speed, and that gives you a chance to analyze it, just to see it for what it is. Absolutely, that's the value of it. It's kind of like if there was, I hate going back to this example, but I'll use it anyway. If there was a lockdown here and there was an active shooter, what would you do? Hide. Some of you who right now are wondering what you would do, it's too late. Imagine if that active shooter came through the door, I didn't have a chance to stop and go, hold on 1 second. So this guy's going to start shooting in a couple seconds. What do you guys plan to do? I'm going to, hurry up, man, 5 seconds. Hide. We don't do that 5-year-old thing. You'd be like, where'd you all go? Maybe I am the crazy one. But if instead we take 2 or 3 days of class time to discuss what we would do if that happens. You follow? Because you're not under the immediate stress of that situation. And then that way when the situation happens, we've already thought about it ahead of time. If you want to be a witty conversationalist, by the way, that's what you do. Anybody in here have conversations with yourself?
Me.
A few of you? What are your conversations about?
Random things.
About random, like what?
I don't know. Like, kind of preparing myself, like, before things, like, for example, before I have a tournament, I talk myself through what I'm going to do. Like, for example, yeah, like my game plan, like, oh, okay, this doesn't work, then I got this to do. Like, it's, just thinking to myself out loud. That's pretty much what it is.
Do you ever answer yourself?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Like,
So it's a real conversation, it's back and forth.
Yeah,
with yourself.
yeah. At times.
And that's a good thing, because then when you experience it on the mat, you've already played out in your head.
Yeah.
That way you have to think of it on the fly immediately.
Yeah.
What else you guys talk about? Yeah.
I like to pretend I'm talking to like a better version of myself, and that they're like degrading, or they're like telling me all this shit. And I'll be like, I'm gonna kick your ass, like if I'm at the gym and I'm preparing myself for a lift, and then like and I'm pretending that myself is like, oh yeah, I can lift this weight for reps, I can do this shit easily, and I'll be like, okay, then I'll prove you wrong, and I'll do it. And then after, like I remember one time I did that, and then after a lift, I was like, fuck you, I just yelled it out loud. and then there was like this girl right next to me, and she's like, what?
You start doing a dance to celebrate it. You got this, Fernando. You're right, Nando Fern. Yeah.
I think about like where people's like actions or reactions, like where they like come from. Like for example, I was talking to this kid, right? I was just trying to make friends or whatever earlier today, and he's in my PE class, and I was trying to talk to him. I was just telling him like about me, like, oh, I'm in mariachi or whatever. And then like I started asking about him, and then I noticed he was like cracking his fingers and like, you know, and I was like, oh, you're really anxious. And I started to think like, I wonder why he's so anxious, you know, or like I think like, why does this person want so much attention, or what, you know, like things like that. Like I asked myself and then I answered, you know.
Just try to come up with the answers for it.
Yeah, for like their childhood or something.
That's good that you ask. That's good that you talk to yourself with that. You wouldn't want to do that to a person, right? Why are you so nervous? Why are you cracking your fingers? What are you anxious about? What hurts you the most? Tell me about your mother.
I think also with the thing about, you know, how in every religion there's like a figure that's like a lead by example. Like people will see that and they'll want to do that, like say Moses, Buddha, or Muhammad.
Yeah. Because what do? They separate themselves from the world. You notice that Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, Moses, Zoroaster, so on, so on, so on. Notice what they didn't do. They didn't go down to the people and go, all right, guys, what do we want to believe in? What do you guys think? No, they separated themselves from people and then came back down and told people what the truth was. We're going to read a story after Socrates. We're doing the allegory of the cave. After that, we're going to look at the prologue for a book called The Spoke Zarathustra. And the main character, Zarathustra, we're going to see, he goes up into a mountain and he stays there for 7 years. And on his way back down, there's a monk who sees him and says, "Who is this guy? I remember seeing this guy a very long time ago, but you're not the same guy, are you?" And Zoroaster's coming back down the mountain. And anybody listen to the music I was playing when you guys were writing? That was one of the songs called Mountain Song. Opening line of it is coming down the mountain. And he, as he's coming down the mountain, that song is actually about the Spoke Zarathustra. And he tells the monk, well, I've gained a whole bunch of wisdom, so now I'm going to impart it upon the world. And the monk tells him, don't bother. Why do you suppose he tells him not to bother? They won't listen. The world won't listen.
They have to experience it within themselves in order to listen.
Yeah. How do you explain that? You've gone up and you've communed with God. You've communed with the Almighty. You've communed with the ineffable. How do I come back down and explain that to you? That's how I started this whole talk. How do I come back and tell you about it? Okay. God is like a marker. That's what you do. You start trying to find ways to make analogies. I could grab my friend and go, come on, let's go up the mountain. We have to go. And that person's like, no, I'm busy. I have to make a phone call. They're not willing to be changed, to be transformed by this thing. They're not willing to be transformed. You have to be willing to be transformed by it. But, and I was thinking about that, the world just won't listen. So Zarathustra comes back down the mountain. I'll give you a bit of a foreshadow. And guess what? He finds his first crowd. There's a person, it's for a tightrope walker. You know what a tightrope walker is? A person who walks on a tightrope. Is that what it sounds like? They carry that stick and then they balance themselves and they, I'm not sure how they hold the stick, and they walk on the tightrope. So he goes to his first village and finds a crowd has formed. And he learns that there's going to be a tightrope walker. And he says, all right, a crowd. He jumps up and he gives his first sermon, his first talk. And the people are all just dumbfounded listening to him. Like, my goodness. And he gets to the end and he says, there are two kinds of people, two kinds of humans. One is the Superman, the Übermensch, the person who has raised themselves up, is no longer part of the crowd. It's the person who has separated themselves out, is their own person. They're beyond judgments of good and evil. They're a powerful individual. And then you have the last man, this person who's part of the herd. They're a sheep. They have no opinions of their own. They're weak, dependent, and they suffer. Who do you want? And the crowd says, bring us the last man. Yeah, we want to be the last man. Is it because they're stupid? No, it's because they're not listening to a goddamn thing he's saying. They think he's the hype man for the tightrope walker.
Oh.
They're not listening to his sermon. He just pours out his soul to the crowd, and they all go, yeah, bring us the last man. They all start applauding. And the guys, and Zarathustra's just like, whoa, what the hell just happened? And then the tightrope walker hears the applause, and he thinks that's for him. He's like, that's my cue. And he walks out to walk on the tightrope. He gets halfway, he falls off the tightrope, and he dies. And the crowd, seeing him fall, look at him and go, well, that show sucked. He only got halfway. And they wander off. Zarathustra alone goes to him, sees him die, and sits with him in his last few moments and closes his eyes for him.
Yeah.
Because the world won't listen. But you also see the problem. Zarathustra went to an unwilling audience. They weren't there for him. They were there to be entertained. And so because they're there to be entertained, why is he mad at them? You entertained them. The crowd wasn't gathered to hear you. The crowd wasn't gathered to hear some deep truth. They weren't in a classroom. They weren't in a lecture hall. They were in a marketplace waiting for a guy to walk overhead. You know?
Did he carry his corpse for like like half of a chapter. I forgot.
Yeah, he carries his body afterwards. A little gruesome, but we're not going to get that far into the story. We're going to stop with the Tightrope Walker. Believe me, that's going to be enough.